All right, let's get to this next part. Go ahead and throw this up on the screen here, guys. We are looking at some new poll numbers that show that 75% of Americans think that Amazon workers need a union. 83% of respondents aged 18 to 34 back Amazon labor union. 71% of young Trump voters support the Amazon union. So that shows you, I mean, there's a little bit of a partisan divide here, but it really is overwhelming support for workers to have an Amazon union. And one of the things that I found really interesting here, Saagar, is that, you know, we've talked about before how Amazon, the company itself, like, people like it. It's convenient. You get your stuff really quickly. And they found, in fact, Amazon had 91% approval rating of people that like it. But people were able to see both, like, I enjoy getting my products quickly and having the everything store there and the convenience that that entails. But I also really strongly feel that their workers should be treated decently and have some say in their workplace. So I found that really, really interesting. And, you know, it really, the support was across the board. There was a little bit of a generational divide here. So older Trump voters in particular were probably the most skeptical, but they still 66% of older Trump supporters also thought that, you know, Amazon workers should have a union. So I think it also puts into perspective all the freak out that we talked about yesterday about Christian Smalls, who's, of course, the president of Amazon Labor Union, going on with Tucker Carlson. And, like, the fact that, one of the arguments that I saw made online about why he shouldn't go on is because Tucker's audience isn't persuadable. And it's like, Tucker's audience is apparently already persuaded.
Yes.
At least a significant part of them are already on board. So, you know, you're actually going, when you go on any network, whether they're speaking to a right-wing audience, a left-wing audience, a liberal audience, or anywhere in between, you are likely to find a lot of receptivity because the support is so incredibly overwhelming.
Look, YouTube comments are not obviously a good metric in order to judge things. That being said, I actually was curious, so I went and I looked at the comments on your monologue yesterday because I knew it was gonna resonate with some Tucker and conservative folks. There were an overwhelming number of comments. And look, our audience is also disproportionately very young. So millennials and Gen Z almost entirely make up like 90-something% of the people who watch the show. So that's another reason I'm curious. So I'm going and I'm reading the comments, and overwhelmingly people are like, hey, Krystal, you changed my mind on unions. Or they say, look, I'm still skeptical of big labor and of a lot of the people talking about social justice and that stuff, but Chris Smalls seems like a legitimately good faith activist who's just fighting for better workers' rights. And also, it's true, the basic argument of we need some balance by the workforce against this giant behemoth, nobody disagreed with that.
Yeah.
That is the most powerful, which is that when you disaggregate this from broader identity politics, culture war fights, how can you look at the second largest employer of individuals in the United States having all of the power over its entire workforce and say, hey, maybe they should have a say in how long their break is, in their wages, working conditions. You know, Americans are good people. They don't want to see people taken advantage of. Most people also still believe in free market capitalism. So they'll look at that and say, look, Bezos, it's cool you got rich, all of that. I think you should probably pay more taxes, but the people who built your company for you should have a say in their day-to-day lives. How many Americans at any level of the stack, quote unquote, are able to relate with your boss just says, and it makes you do something that you know is ridiculous, but you just have to blindly follow. Yeah. And that level of indignity compounds across your life. And it makes you depressed, it makes you feel like less than human, and you have to go and explore, you know, you have to go take a drink or smoke a cigarette or whatever just to forget your problems. I mean, how much of that am I describing of the everyday life of the average American? I don't think that's gonna go away ever. But, you know, having some say in that has real consequences for people's lives.
It's huge. Yeah. And I think people wanna order stuff from Amazon. They want to feel good about ordering stuff from Amazon, you know? And I think everyone sees how extraordinarily profitable, I mean, the billions and billions of dollars that Amazon raked in from all of us during the pandemic. And so there's also an awareness of like, no, you could afford to treat, like, this union is not going to destroy your business. Like, no one's going to believe that about Amazon. they feel like you could afford to treat your workers a little bit better and let them have a little bit of say in their workplace so that they don't have to suffer the indignities that we've talked about here. I mean, one of the things that Chris always talks about and other Amazon workers that we've spoken with always speak about is just the inhumanity of having this automated system that like hires and fires you. So you're not even dealing with a human being. And New York Times, we talked to Jody Cantor, remember, about what a mess their HR system is through all of these automated processes where people are getting fired for no reason, through no fault of their own. And there's just like no recourse. You can't even get a human being on the phone to explain what the hell happened or to try to get your job reinstated. So that's the kind of like automated algorithmic tyranny that they live under every single day. There was actually a post that was floating around of Amazon had posted at one of their facilities on Easter Sunday. So these workers who came in on Easter Sunday, they were like, thanks for coming in on Easter Sunday. As a reward, if you have this high, was like 315 rate, I don't know what that translates to, but I'm sure it's some sort of nightmarish warehouse pace, then you get entered into a raffle for chips and a soda. It's like, that's your reward for us giving up our holiday and coming in and slaving away for you? It shows the level of contempt that they have ultimately for these workers. So I think it's extraordinary. I just want to highlight, you know, at this point, because union favorability is so high, because there has been such a shift in consciousness during the pandemic of who does what in this society and who really makes this thing run. And there's been a lot of, you know, people who were previously sort of invisible in the society, warehouse workers doing the work behind the scenes, have become a lot more visible to folks who understand the incredibly essential work that they've been doing truly to keep the country running. And so it's easy to take for granted that there would be this positive sentiment in favor of a union at Amazon. But this is a complete sea change from just not long ago at all. I mean, when I was doing regular Fox News hits, the anti-union stuff was every day, all day. It was very popular with the base. You know, we'd had decades of anti-union propaganda, convincing people of all sorts of lies about what unions actually are and what they actually mean. And I do think that with Chris Smalls and with the Amazon labor union, obviously I was very critical of AOC and others for not showing up for them when it really counted, when they were, you know, before they ultimately cast ballots. I think it's ended up being a blessing in disguise, though, because it means that they haven't been associated with any sort of partisan camp.
That's what I said.
They just are in and of themselves, you know, and sort of judged on the merits of what they're doing. So it makes it hard to just put it into a partisan space. And I do think that's part of what's contributing to these very high numbers.
We talked about this yesterday. You know, Staten Island is Trump country. I don't think a lot of people realize that. Guess who they're all watching? Tucker. So they're like, oh, you were on Tucker? That's like a big thing, you know, in terms of credibility for him. And I think that the reason that all of this matters is, if anything, the more grassroots it is, the better that it is going to succeed. The less it gets attached to our culture war and to our broader American political agenda, the worse that a political movement is going to fare. So, Chris, God bless you. Stay independent. Don't let anybody try and take hold of this thing, and stay true to yourself. The more that you do, the more you're going to succeed, and that's why that we've seen the level of success that he has had.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.